What up, star nerds? Today I'm going to tell you about how to process a comet. Particularly timely right now because there's a couple of comets up at the same time. The one that I'm going to walk you through is Comet 2025 A6 Lemon, the one I've got up on the screen here. And I'm going to show you how to process it in a way where you get both the comet being still and the stars being still. This used to be a much harder process, but with the availability of StarXterminator, this has become much easier than it used to be. The main thing that StarXterminator gives us is the ability to remove the stars from individual linear subframes before we do the rest of the processing, which StarNet++ couldn't really do. So I'm going to take you through how to do that. So first, you're going to calibrate your frames the way that you ordinarily would. You can either use weighted batch preprocessor or just image calibration with your flats and darks and the way that you would ordinarily calibrate your frames. That's all the same. The set that I have here is a monochrome data set, so I have R, G, and B. This same process will work for one-shot color as well. You'll just have to also include the step to debayer before you get too far. This, after you do calibration, would be the right time to debayer. You can also run subframe selector, but I tend to want to keep most of those frames. I just go through and blink and make sure there's not any ones where the stars got too crazy. Then you're going to do your registration the same way that you ordinarily would to aligning on the stars. So you can either do that also in weighted batch preprocessor or in StarAlignment the way that you ordinarily would. So after you do your StarAlignment, then your images will look like this, where the comet is moving through. So now, because when I did my imaging of this comet, I had in my sequence to just rotate through R, G, and B. So I just had a loop of RGB, 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 which you can do just by setting, like in Nina, just do one exposure and then loop until time, and it will just keep going through it until you hit the time. So these are the B frames here. So you kind of see it jump a little bit because it's rotating through. But you can see that the comet is moving and the stars are steady. So unload those. So after you do the star alignment, then you're going to do the comet alignment. This is using a process in PixInsight called CometAlignment, which I have a copy saved to my process icons here, but it's in processes, all processes, CometAlignment here. And this process has actually been around for quite a while. It's not new. It's just, I don't know how many people have looked at it before, especially if you haven't done much comet processing. So you need to add your star aligned files. That's because what it's going to do is it's going to estimate the motion of the comet through the image. And you need to have all your frames, and it will put them in time order for you. But you need to have them where the stars are already aligned so that it can do that estimation. So that if you're dithering, for example, which you should always do, then your images will be moving around a bit, and that will mess up the comet location estimation. So you have to have them star aligned first. Because it works so well with estimating the motion through the image, I just throw all of my R, G, and B frames in at the same time. So hopefully you have the filter name in your file name, which I do highly recommend. So I'm going to I just added my B's, now I'm adding my G's. Come on. And my reds. All right, so I usually go ahead and set the output directory here so that I don't forget to do it later. I have a folder here called Comet Registered. I put them into these folders afterwards, but here, I'll just make a little folder here so I don't accidentally write over things. All right, so I'm going to pull this process over here, and you only have to do a couple things here. So first, you're going to hit Show First Image, and it's going to open up the first image in the time sequence. go ahead and auto stretch, and you'll see where your comet is. Go ahead and zoom in and click on the nucleus of the comet, about as close to the center as you can get it. And then you can close that and hit show last image. Apply the automatic stretch. So you see that it is moved, of course. I'm going to zoom in and select where the nucleus is. Zoom back out, close that. And then in order to, I don't know if this is strictly speaking necessary, but for goodness, I set the registration reference for the stars to one of the frames in the middle of the sequence. I just kind of looked for what was roughly halfway through and selected that as my star registration frame, so that the comet would be roughly in the middle of the image when I do the stacking. And I'm going to use that same reference frame for the comet alignment here. So in my case, it was green frame number 9. So I scroll down here, green frame number 9, set reference. And so when it does the comet alignment, it will align all the images to where the comet is at in this frame. But you don't have to tell it where the comet's at, because it has, once you select the comet nucleus in the first and last frames, it goes through and interpolates all the other ones. So if I open, let's say, this image here and pull this over and stretch it, you can see it has already selected automatically where the comet nucleus is. So that's very handy. Okay, with all of that done, then I'm not going to hit it here so that we don't have to sit here and wait for it, but hit the circle apply global button, and it will go through and align all the images on the comet. So let me show you what that looks like after that's been done. So let me open up Blink again here. Delete my test folder. And we'll just open up just the blue frames again. All right, and now you will see that the comet is in the center of, not moving, and the stars are moving behind it. So that's pretty cool, and you can see that it did a pretty good job. The reason why it seems to brighten here is because I started this imaging sequence when the comet was only about 10 degrees up off the horizon, so kind of a denser, thicker atmosphere there. You can't see as much. And then this runs for about, what did it end up being? About an hour and a half, a little over an hour and a half, to, as it got higher in the sky, it gets more clear and the background gets darker. All right, so we'll close that. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the stars from the comet aligned images so that when we stack the comet, we only have the comet and we don't have any of the stars in the background, which will make it much easier to process later when we don't have to go try and remove those star streaks that are left behind. So to do that, we're going to run StarXterminator in batch mode. So we go ahead and open that up here. So you open StarXterminator. I'm going to untick unscreen stars since we're going to throw away these stars, and also we're in linear mode. So hit process batch. I want to keep the starless files, which is the comet only, and I'm going to toss the star files because this is the ones where the stars are not aligned, but the comet is aligned. So I'm going to go to my comet registered. Oops, sorry. I'm going to first set my output folder, which is my StarXterminator folder, B frames, select folder. Actually, I'm going to make a little test folder so I don't accidentally overwrite things. Okay, we're going to leave the rest of this set as it is and hit select input files and execute. So I'll go to my comet registered folder, and you don't have to do this separately by filter, but I like to keep things organized that way so that it's easier when I go hit stack to just grab all the frames. Because I rotated through them, it's, you know, RGB, RGB, RGB. Instead of going through and clicking every third one, I can just go through and hit select all on one of the folders. So this is just makes it a little bit easier. So it will say, please confirm that this is all that you want, proceed. I'm going to hit cancel here so that we don't have to sit here and wait for it to run. This one does take a little while because it's applying StarXterminator to all of your files, but go get a cup of coffee, come back. So I'm going to hit cancel here. And so now what we will have at that point, after I run that on my RG and B frames here, and now you can see we have a starless comet image. So that's really nice. All right, now we're going to stack two things. We're going to stack the star-aligned images and we're going to stack the comet-aligned images. So I'm going to open up image integration the way that you ordinarily would. Add files. I'm going to go to my, first I'll do my stars image. So I'm going to go to stars registered and open up all my blue and then green and then red stars aligned images. So the comet is moving in this one. I haven't run subframe selector, so I'm not going to use the subframe selector weighting keyword and just do don't care, weights all one. And again, I'm not going to hit stack here so that we don't have to wait. I'll put the cookies in one oven and pull them out of the other oven, all done, just like on the TV shows. So let me go and open one of those images. So here is the star stacked image, and you can see that we've got the comet moving through the frame here, but not to worry because we're going to run StarXterminator on each of these as well to extract the stars. And then it won't bring along any of this comet with it because StarXterminator is quite good at doing its job. So I'll do this for the blue frames and the blue frames, the green frames, the red frames, and I'll have my blue, green, and red star stacked images. So I'm going to call this one B stars. And I'll have green and red for that as well. And then we're going to stack the comet ones. So again, open image integration, add files, except now we're going to add the starless comet images that we created earlier using StarXterminator. Again, not running subframe selector, so just don't care, weights all equal 1. And again, I'm not going to hit the go button on this just to save some time. And I will show you what that looks like when that's done. So here's the B frame for the comet stack. And you can see here that we have a nice clean comet image, no star trails in the background, none of those artifacts that we used to get before we could extract the stars pre-stacking. And I've got a nice stacked image of my, this is the blue frame of my comet here. So we'll call this one just B or B comet or whatever you'd like. All right, so in order to proceed, let me go ahead and open the rest of those. So I've got my R here. G and G and R stars. Yep, so here's the R stars frame and G stars. Okay, so I've got RG and B for stars and RGB for comet. At this point, let's go ahead and do RGB combination on both of those. So I'm going to open the channel combination process. So that's processes, all processes, channel combination here. And first we'll do the comet. I've already got this named RG and B, so I'll just go ahead and hit the execute, apply global button here. And I've got my comet image. I should have mentioned when I was doing the registration, I'm using the same reference frame for the RG and B stars and comet. So I'm using that green frame number 9 that I mentioned earlier during CometAlignment, also for the stars alignment, and also for all the different filters. So if you're doing color, then this is a little easier. If you're doing one-shot color, you just pick one reference frame. The same for monochrome, but you're going to register for the comet and the stars all the images to one reference frame. Doesn't matter what filter it is. I just picked one that was roughly in the middle, happens to be green. And so now we have our RGB image of the comet. So I'll call this RGB. I can minimize that, and I can go ahead and close my RGB comet frames. And now we'll do the same for the stars. So I'm clicking the little select button here and selecting R stars, G stars, and B stars. Apply global. Go ahead and close the process. And here's our RGB stars image with our funny comet leftover going here that we're going to remove the stars from here shortly. So RGB stars. Okay. Minimize that. Now at each of these stages from here on out, when I've got these individual frames, now that they're stacked, I do save those out. Let me pull my folder over here so that I can go back to a step if I ever need to. If an artifact shows up later that I need to go back a few steps because I missed it earlier, or if I'm processing this again in the future and want to do something different at an earlier stage, then I don't have to go through and reprocess everything. So I do later on delete all of the pre-stack individual images except for the original lights because I can recreate those relatively easily. But here I save my comet stacked RGB frames, my star stacked RGB frames. Actually, so those are here. This one here is after I've extracted the stars, although I'm going to do that a slightly different way than I did this the first time. So now I can close my RGB stars frames, open up my RGB star combination frame, and go ahead and do the star extraction. So I'm going to open StarXterminator. I don't want to unscreen the stars because I'm going to throw away the rest of the image anyways, and just hit the apply button here. All right, so I had to recover there from PixInsight crashing doing StarXterminator. Since I've now put a background on my video, it is eating up a bit of GPU to do that since I'm not using my green screen. It takes a little more effort for NVIDIA Broadcast to put a fake green screen behind me. So StarXterminator ended up crashing PixInsight. Don't worry about it. I opened the images I'd already created previously. So here again is our starless comet image that we stacked. And this is the stars extracted from the stars aligned image that I showed you earlier. Now, when you auto stretch a stars only image, it's going to look super weird because most of the image is black, and then you have these bright points scattered all around, plus some kind of it doesn't stretch properly when you do that. So if it looks like this, don't worry about it. It's not actually like this. If you really want to fix it so that you can see what it properly looks like, if you open the screen transfer function process and zoom in, then you can kind of grab the midtone slider here and move it around a bit so that it's not totally wonked out. And yes, your star image is still here. It's fine. Okay, next thing we're going to do is go ahead and combine our stars and starless. So let me open PixelMath. Since I did not unscreen the stars, we can just do a straight add. So let me open my comet image. I'm just going to rename this to stars since I already have that in my process here. So $T just means this image, the one I have selected, and stars is the name, on the tab here of the image I want to add. I hit the apply button and I've added my stars back in now. And now it looks quite nice. So I can close this, I can close my stars image, and I would save this out as I mentioned where I'd save it out at each step so that I can go back if I need to. So before we run anything else like GraXpert, now I'm going to crop the image using dynamic crop to get rid of, you're always going to have a lot of edges for a comet image because it's moving through the frame, and we've aligned the comet image on one of the frames, so there's going to be some black edges, and because I chose a frame in the middle, they're going to be on both sides. So go ahead and crop this. Okay, and then I can resize the window so that we don't have these edges by hitting this button here, fit view, nice and handy. Okay, now I have this screen stretched with an unlinked stretch. If I do a linked stretch by hitting Shift while clicking the STF Auto Stretch button, you can see we've got quite a lot of background in here. That is green, and just kind of some background in general, particularly because I was lower in the atmosphere. This is from my Starfront telescope, so I don't have a lot of light pollution, but there's still things like air glow, particularly lower in the sky, which is probably why this is predominantly green. So let me run GraXpert here. I'm not actually going to run it because I'm probably going to crash PixInsight again. So I'll go ahead and close that and open the GraXpert image. So even though we've subtracted that background, the colors, if I again do a linked stretch, they're not quite color balanced. So I want to run spectrophotometric color calibration, which means I need to plate solve this image. So when I use Nina, it saves the coordinates that I have told it when I was putting this in the sequence. I gave it a set of coordinates to slew to. Those get saved into the image. So these coordinates should be pretty close to where I had set it. And I set it for where the comet was going to be roughly through the middle of the image. These don't have to be exact. As long as you're pretty close to where the center of the image is, that should work just fine. So this is the ImageSolver script. Hit OK. It's going to go ahead and do the plate solve. Cool. Now, if for some reason the image does not have the coordinates written into it, you could go use an app like Sky Safari or Stellarium to see where the comet was at about the time of the reference frame. Or if you save out a FITS version of this image, you can upload it to astrometry.net and have it do a plate solution there. And then you can plug those coordinates into ImageSolver and then run ImageSolver. Or SETI Astro has a script called BlindSolver 2000, which actually also invokes astrometry.net and uploads the image and re-downloads the result. And that will just do that for you, a handy script so that you don't have to export and re-import from astrometry.net. Okay, so now we can run spectrophotometric color calibration. So this was with my 2600 mm. I usually just use this QE curve for that for most of my cameras. This is with astronomic type 2 RG and B filters. These don't have to be the exact filters that you have. Sometimes if the filter I have isn't listed in here, I'll just use Sony CMOS like R, G and B, UV IR cut. If the filters I have aren't in here, that tends to work pretty well because a lot of centers right now are Sony ones. Yeah, don't really change anything else here and hit go. All right, and that's done. Now it also kind of does rescaling of the image, so it will look really weird when it first comes out. Just hit that screen auto screen transfer function and you'll get the image that you were looking at before, except now it is properly white balanced. I just used average spiral galaxy here. You could also use G2V star, which is the type that our sun is here. But I found this to be relatively representative of the comet color. It is kind of a blue-green. So go ahead and close that. And now from here, you're going to pretty much proceed like normal. I'm going to run BlurXterminator, NoiseXterminator. Let me go ahead and walk you through the stretch that I do as well to try and keep the nucleus from blowing out a whole bunch. So I'll go ahead and close that. So the image I'm going to open here is that same one, but with BlurXterminator and NoiseXterminator applied. StarXterminator didn't end up doing a whole lot on the trail here, but if you have more of the tail in your image because you had a wider field of view, you may see some sharpening there, and of course it just makes my stars look a little nicer, a little bit less like Schmidt-Cassegrain stars. All right, and it's also been noise exterminated, and now I'm going to open generalized hyperbolic stretch, which is by far and away my favorite stretching process. I pretty much don't use anything else anymore. I have another video on how to use this, but I'll show you how I used it on this image here as well. So first I'm going to turn off the screen transfer function so that I can see what I'm doing at each step here, and open the real-time preview. Now, the actual histogram is way down here. The peak of the histogram is way down here on the left, so I'm going to zoom in. If you hit the zoom button here, it zooms in 250 times, 500 times, 750 times. It is a very narrow peak here because A, I was in, this is from a dark sky site, and B, with the color correction and the background subtraction from GraXpert, this is a pretty tight histogram peak at this point. So I'm going to go, I don't have a whole lot of bins here to see, but kind of roughly halfway up the curve on the right side. Hit send to SP, which is send to symmetry point. This is the point around which the curve will be centered when you go to do the stretch. So we're in RGB mode here, generalized hyperbolic, and I'm going to click and drag this stretch. Actually, before I do that, let me zoom all the way back out here so I can see the shape of the histogram. And click and drag this stretch factor a little ways out. Now I don't want to blow out this core here, so I'm going to grab the local intensity and really flatten that curve a fair bit. And I'm also going to grab the protect highlights and pull that in a bit as well. And hit apply, reset. Remember, since PixInsight is cumulative, if I hit apply and I don't hit reset, it is what it's showing me in the preview is what it would look like if I applied that same exact process with all the same settings that we just did again. But we don't want to do that, so hit reset. Now I'm just going to, since this peak is now kind of off the side and has some size to it, I'm just going to use this box here and with my scroll wheel to zoom in just a little bit. And grab again halfway up the right side of the curve here, send to symmetry point, zoom back out, and again stretch factor, grab that, pull that to the right, flatten out a bit with local intensity, and pull protect highlights in to keep from blowing out the core while I try and bring up the tail here. Apply, reset. And you can see at this point it's come pretty far off the left side, so that means the background is kind of high. So I'm going to switch from the transformation type from generalized hyperbolic to linear. And I'm going to move the histogram peak back toward the left by moving the black point to the right. So I'm just going to grab that black point here. Now you do want to watch that you don't take the left edge of the peak off the left edge of the histogram. But because that way then you would be clipping some of the background, and you don't really want a true black background in your astro images. It looks unnatural, and with all of the dust and space that reflects things, and the fact that we are imaging from within the atmosphere, there's always going to be a little bit of scatter. It looks more natural to have a bit of a background in there, so I don't want to clip that background off to be black. A common mistake by a lot of newbies, myself included in the early days, when I would kind of clip it out so it was more black, but it doesn't look as good. Hit apply, reset. Now I do want to kind of bring out more of this tail, so I'm going to click on the image and see where on the histogram that tail is at. And you can see it's actually kind of to the right of the main part of the peak. That's because the peak, by far and away, the majority of the pixels in this image are near black, are the background of the image, because most of the image is just the background of space. So anything that's above that background is actually going to be what's to the right of your peak here. So if you click and drag, wherever you let go is where the symmetry point will set here, and you can hit send to symmetry point. And let me go ahead and move this stretch factor. And you can see it's still, of course, bringing up the brighter parts that are even further to the right as well. So I'm actually going to, at this point, move the local intensity a little more to the left, since we're kind of on the other side of the curve now. And grab my protect highlights, bring that back into, hit apply. I'm not going to go much further here with this process because I'm still trying not to blow out the nucleus here. So I'm going to stop here and get the rest with curves. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. At this point, I would save a copy of this image called GHS, Generalized Hyperbolic Stretch. So let me go in and apply curves. Now I am going to allow here the nucleus to get blown out a little bit, not so that it saturates, but that it ends up looking a lot brighter than the image, because I'm going to apply another process here shortly called HDR transformation. So let me bring up the middle here a bit. Let me bring up, let's see, if I bring up the background too much, it starts to look really flat, even though we are also bringing up the tail like we kind of want to. So you kind of have to kind of play the middle a bit and try and get it to not appear too flat. And if I bring down the highlights, you can see it kind of starts to get weird too. So usually at this point, I actually bring up the highlights a bit, and it makes it look more natural and also kind of gives it a bit of a glow. So I'll hit apply here, reset, and I might go ahead and increase the C component or the saturation at this point just a little bit to pop the color. You don't go too crazy, otherwise it could start to look very fake. So just bring that up a little bit. A lot of small movements here. Hit apply, reset, close the preview. All right, now I'm going to apply HDRMultiscaleTransform. This is a great process for things that have a wide variety of brightnesses, like comets, like galaxies in particular. I use it very often on because cores can tend to be much, much brighter than the outer edges. And this basically does a HDR compression on the image so that, because the data here spans a huge range that is not visible all at the same time on the computer screen, which is only an 8-bit rather than a 32-bit display. So in order to have that display nicely, where you have the dimmer things and the brighter things kind of more compressed so that the contrast is nice on a computer screen, then I'm going to open this HDRMultiscaleTransform process. This process can be a little bit slow, so I make a preview here using this new preview button. If you don't have this set of icons here, you can go to view over here, go to toolbars, and let's see which one of these is it. I think it's either the preview, I think it's the preview one. Yeah, this is where you can turn on and off different of these icon sets for quick access from the top bar here. Okay, so make a new preview, click and drag. I'm just gonna grab the important part that I'm really focusing on for this HDR compression, which is the middle here, and then click on that preview so that I can just see that here. And then usually, so I'll start with, I think this is potentially the default set of parameters, or at least this is the parameters that I start from frequently, where the number of layers is 6, iterations is 1, median transform, lightness mask to lightness. I don't change anything else here, I think. Go ahead and apply. And that's a little bit too much, right? So I'm gonna Control-Shift-Z is the undo button for a preview, as opposed to Control-Z, which is the undo button for the main image. There's a difference there. And Control-Shift-Z, back and forth, is what does and undoes a single action from the preview. So at this point, I would start messing around with settings. Now, first I'll change the number of layers and see what looks good there. But if it's still doing weird stuff, like you can see, I have some kind of like diffraction going on here. That's probably not actual real stuff on the comet, but is diffraction from the really bright nucleus. And then if I'm not loving what I'm getting just by changing the number of layers, I'll untick median transform and start messing with the different types of scaling functions here. What I ended up with, I'll go open the process. So sometimes if I have a process where I have a particular set of settings, I'll save it into a processes folder in the image processing directory. And then I can click and drag that back in to PixInsight. So what I ended up settling on was number of layers is 7. The B3 spline looked nicely with pretty much everything else the same. Hit apply to that preview. And yeah, I kind of like this because it didn't really bring out those diffraction spikes from, those are probably actually from the camera as opposed to the telescope given their shape. But it does some HDR compression so I can get some detail of seeing the tail here. coming all the way up to the nucleus and kind of being able to see the nucleus is a little bit smaller as opposed to being just kind of a blown out area. So once I've satisfied with the settings I have in the preview, I'll go back to the main image, go ahead and delete my preview using this delete preview button here, and hit the apply button, and it will go apply it to the whole image. And there we go. Yeah, and then pretty much from here, I do a little bit more curves because it looks kind of dark. I want to brighten it up a bit. And now that we've done the HDR compression, I have a little more room to brighten it up without blowing out the core. So kind of mess with that a bit. Bring up the highlights a bit so that the core kind of has that glow to it. Apply. I don't think I need to apply any more saturation increase here. And there you have it. There's your complete comet image with a nice star field, no weird artifacts in the background from trying to remove streaked stars from the comet aligned image. And also you have steady stars instead of just stacking the comet aligned image with the stars as they are and having these streaks of stars to the image, which can also be a cool image. It kind of shows the motion of the comet through the image and is also worth making as well. But I really like to have, my favorite comet images are ones where the stars are steady from somewhere in the middle of its transition through the frame, and the comet is also steady. And so there you have it. That's how you process a comet in PixInsight from beginning to end. Have fun imaging the couple of comets that are up right now, and any comets that come through in the future.